It's important to work with the other advisory council. Every pastoral council and finance council should have some cross-membership. Because going back to Mark Fisher, the pastoral council sort of sets the parish priorities. They consult with parishioners, they understand what the parish is about, they set the priorities. Finance council puts those priorities into action by the budget. Okay? I can't imagine how we can have a budget without the finance council and the pastoral council working together. Pastoral council setting priorities through their planning process. Finance council seeing those priorities are carried out. So it's real important to have some cross-membership. Somebody should, at least one person should sit on both to make sure that you're both on the same page. Now, at our focus groups I mentioned earlier, we asked our finance council members about the relationship they have with their parish's pastoral council. The one we got most frequently was something like this. We have no direct interaction, only indirect interaction through the pastor. The pastor sits on both. That's not enough. I mean, the poor pastor is already overworked, and now you're going to ask the pastor to not only sit on both, but also make sure that both sides are in congruence with one another. You need more than that. One person told us, we have one joint social meeting in June to welcome new members and thank those who are leaving. You know, a social meeting is not the same. You know, you really have to have a business meeting. You have to be there to understand what's happening so that two groups can talk to each other. One person told us, well, I know several members of the pastoral council. That's not enough. About a quarter of the participants described a formal relationship between the two councils. One person told us, I serve as the finance council liaison to the pastoral council so that the finance council can track the activities of the pastoral council. As the resources of the parish are limited, they need to be directed to support the pastoral. Man, I couldn't have said that better myself. That's exactly the kind of relationship we need between pastoral council and finance council. Another person said, parish finances are discussed fully with the pastoral council to be certain that we are on the same page. Again, exactly what we need. Yes?
You have a school board involved in the parish.
Yeah.
Did you say the same thing?
Yeah. If the school receives funding from the parish, and presume it does, there's got to be some coordination there with the pastoral council and with the finance council as well. So in that case, all three councils should be talking to one another and have some representation among each one. Yeah, the schools always make things more interesting, don't they? Any other questions or comments? Okay. And finally, one person said, we are linked to the finance council chair. Agendas and minutes are shared. The pastoral council is visionary, as Mark Fisher would say. The finance council deals more in present and with existing constraints, money. Again, I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay? But some way, somehow, you folks have to be talking with one another. And again, earlier, a few minutes ago, I urged that you show the preliminary budget to the entire parish. You have to show it to the pastoral council. I can't imagine a finance council approving a final budget without getting some preliminary input from the pastoral council. If the two councils are supposed to work the way they're supposed to work, they have to be discussing issues, and especially at that critical juncture. Okay, it's real important that both types of councils function as what's called an effective group. First of all, goals should be structured cooperatively so that all members are committed to achieving them. If a handful of members are setting the goals, other members have no say at all, they won't be invested. They won't be involved. It's real important that everybody on the council be on board as far as what the goals are and what you're trying to achieve. And make sure the goals are achievable. It's very easy for a council to set goals that are not achievable. Make sure the goals are achievable, but again, that every member is committed to achieving them. Communication must be two-way, and the open and accurate expression of ideas and feelings is emphasized. Everybody should have a say. Everybody should talk. Members should not be afraid to disagree with the pastor. Okay? So many of these councils turned into rubber stamp groups. because no one wants to disagree with the pastor. So the pastor comes in, presents an idea, no one wants to disagree, so it flies through without any consultation, without any advice of the pastor, without any tweaking. In the long run, that's very harmful to the parish, especially in the case of the finance council. Okay? The last thing a pastor needs is a rubber stamp finance council, because that's when pastors get in real trouble, because again, pastors are really not typically trained in finances. And so they really need your input. They really need you to tell him what's happening. Every time I read about an embezzlement in a parish, whether it's a staff member or anyone else, anytime I read about embezzlement, I say, okay, where was the finance council? Because that's one thing the finance council should be doing, is looking at the numbers close enough that they can detect when there's an embezzlement. If they're a rubber stamp finance council, then they're not doing their job, and that's when the parish gets into trouble. So it's real important communication can be two-way. And the pastor shouldn't be afraid to say, no, this idea won't fly. So the council's talking about something, and they might be going in a certain direction the pastor doesn't feel comfortable with. It's the pastor at that point say, listen, no, we're not going to go this way, because I couldn't possibly live with that. Again, the council is there as a consultative body to the pastor. You're not there to tell the pastor what to do. You're there to consult for him. And so you have to have the free exchange. You tell the pastor when you disagree. The pastor tells you when he disagrees. Okay? Again, the last thing a pastor needs is counsels that won't give him the truth. Participation and leadership should be distributed among all members. It's real important that you make an effort to make sure that at every meeting, everybody participates. Everybody who's there should have the chance to speak and participate. Some of us are maybe not as active as others. We might sit and not get involved in the discussion. Someone, somehow, better make sure that everybody's voice is heard so that everybody feels, again, committed to whatever decision is made and invested in the activities of the council. If you're going to be assigning subcommittees, make sure that the leadership of the subcommittees is shared. Don't assign the same people to be the subcommittee members all the time. Make sure that you kind of rotate that so that everybody, again, feels like they're invested in what the council is doing. Okay, power should be shared. Ability should determine influence. It's not the person who talks the loudest or the longest. Everybody should have a share of what's happening, and everybody's influence should be involved. It should be equal. This is a real important one. Structured controversy in which council members advocate their views and challenge each other's information and reasoning is seen as the key to high-quality creative decision-making. It's real important that you have a constructive discussion. It's real important that you allow conflict to occur in your council meetings, because that's how innovative ideas come out. That's how high-quality creative decision-making occurs. If someone floats an idea and others don't challenge it in a constructive manner, constructive and respectful manner, you're not getting the best you can. Okay? Again, you need folks to be debating one another, being able to disagree and not be harmed, not feel like you've been insulted by that. Too many of us, when we sit on a council, feel it's unchristian to disagree with someone, unchristian to criticize someone's ideas. It's not. If you're there for the benefit of your parish, we really need you to speak your mind. If you disagree with someone, if you see a conflict occurring, that's okay. It's okay to have conflict. At our last pastoral council meeting in my parish, we had a really conflict-ridden discussion. We went about a half hour over our time. And as we're leaving, I could see some members were really discouraged by that. They felt really bad that they weren't all in the same boat, and people disagreed with one another, and they felt that they had failed. I thought it was a huge success, because while there was conflict and there was disagreement, it was all done very respectfully. It was all done in a very Christian way. And at the end of the meeting, we hadn't resolved the issue anymore. But we were getting closer to it, and we were coming up with some really high-quality, creative ideas as to how to resolve this that never would have occurred if some members hadn't been willing to disagree. Yes?
A recent event in our parish council in which the discussion in the parish council meeting itself was pretty low-key. And it was carried on after the meeting through emails to the council members, continuing to discuss an issue. And that's where we heard about the dissenters. We hadn't heard from them.
Yeah.
Do you think that some people said we should be talking about this in person, not on email. It could get out to the rest of the world. There are a lot of privacy risks and so forth. But what's your feeling on that? Because in my opinion, it was great, and we're going to be coming together this next week, and I'm really looking forward to it because we know where everyone stands.
Yeah. In this day and age, it's so easy to communicate with one another as a group after the meeting. Now, again, I'm assuming that everybody was involved in the email exchange. It wasn't just a couple of folks going back and forth. It was everybody. And that's important. It's got to be everybody. And I agree that folks who wouldn't have been willing to speak or wanted to think about it more, be a little more reflective before they said something, might have not spoken at the meeting, but then after thinking about it, say, well, here's my thoughts through email. And that's healthy, rather than have it simmer there and wait till the next meeting a month from then. So that's a good idea. My one concern, though, is I know when I've sent emails, things don't always come out in print like I meant them to be. So I'll say something I thought was not offensive, but someone took offense to it, was they had heard me say it in my voice, and have known that the tone of my voice was not offensive. But so as long as you're careful, and again, that comes down to trust. At some point, members have to trust one another, and in the process, an email exchange, you have to trust that the person is doing it in good faith. So you want controversy, you want structured controversy, and you don't want people running off, and you want conflict. A good, effective group, conflicts resolved by agreement that maximizes the outcomes and leaves all members satisfied. Okay? There's three ways you can deal with conflict. One, you can avoid it. Avoid it at all costs. We're not going to have any conflict at all in this council. We're going to avoid it. That's what I call a lose-lose proposition, because the underlying issues are still there. I mean, you can avoid the conflict all you want, but the underlying issue is still there. They're going to keep coming back, coming back, coming back. Compromise is a nice solution, but it's not an ideal solution. Because even with a compromise, some of the underlying issues may not have been resolved and still might come back. You might have compromised now, but you're still bothered by this issue, and you may not compromise in the future. The best approach, and we'll talk about this in a little while, is consensus. Get the whole group to talk about it, to reach a solution that everybody is satisfied with. We'll talk about that in a little while. The point is, again, this is this is healthy. Conflict is healthy, as long as it's done in a respectful and Christian way. Okay, cohesion advanced through high levels of inclusion, affection, acceptance, support, and trust. So you really want to work as a team, work for council cohesion. Okay, decision-making procedures are matched with the situation. Different methods are used at different times. Consensus sought for important decisions. I can't think of a single decision made by a pastoral council or a finance council where the best approach is not consensus, as opposed to simply voting. To me, reaching consensus is always superior to any other approach you might use.